But first, overnight news to tell you about another deadly shooting in Albuquerque. It's happened about midnight on Arno and Fruit. It's near Lomas and Broadway, pretty close to downtown. Police there tell us one person was shot and killed. They have not said who that person is or if they know who pulled the trigger, but we do know officers were out here all night long investigating. It has been very busy overnight and at some point got very emotional. It looks like friends or family of the person who was killed found out about what happened. Now, as soon as we get more information about this, we'll pass it along to you.
Also happening now, UNM is getting ready to officially announce Coach Craig Neal as the men's head basketball coach. Let's head over to Matt, who has been following this story. Matt, what you got for us?
Elizabeth, I got one word for you: noodles. That was all UNM's athletic director Paul Krebs tweeted out yesterday before saying Coach Neal got the job. UNM summed up its search for its next head coach by saying it only had to look 18 inches to the left of Steve Alford to this man, Coach Noodles, Craig Neal. On Saturday, Alford stunned Lobo Nation by announcing he was leaving for UCLA. Athletic director Paul Krebs had immediately named Neal as interim head coach and dropped plenty of hints that Neal could be next in line for the top job for continuity's sake. Neal had been Alford's top assistant since they both donned cherry and silver 6 years ago. Now as the head coach, Neal has a 5-year deal worth $750,000 a year plus incentives. That is $250,000 less than Alfred was making last season. Now Coach Neal is honored and excited to build on what he and Alfred started.
You know, I think there'll be some changes, but not a lot of changes. We've had a long withstanding program of excellence, and that's all I want to continue.
Well, Coach Neal has never actually been a head coach, but he has a good-looking resume. He was a star point guard at Georgia Tech in the 80s, where he was nicknamed Noodles for his gangly physique and led the whole country in assists. Plus, he played in the NBA for 8 years for the Toronto Raptors, then was an assistant coach in the NBA for years after that. And here's what athletic director Paul Krebs is saying about Coach Neal. Craig probably had as much freedom with our program in making decisions as any associate coach in the whole country. And his time working with Coach Alfred has prepared him fully for this task. We certainly hope so. Coach Craig Neal will be officially introduced as the Lobos' next head coach at 3 o'clock this afternoon. We will be there. Van Tate will let you know what happens later today. And another good thing about this move is timing. It could help convince Alex Kirk and Tony Snell to come back for another season. That would have the Lobos with 5 starters all back next year. Well, the announcement of Coach Neal came just a few hours after Coach Alfred Steve was officially introduced as the UCLA head coach.
And it was a very difficult decision. It was a leap of faith. It was a family decision.
Right, his 7-year deal with UCLA is going to pay him at least $2.6 million per year. This just a week after Alfred agreed to a new 10-year deal with the Lobos. That was supposed to start on Monday, but because Alfred said adios before that, a big question has been how much he owes UNM for his buyout.
One way or the other, there's a buyout. How much that is, Steve and I haven't talked about it. Our respective lawyers haven't talked about it.
All right, what was supposed to be Alfred's new contract says he owes UNM $1 million, but because he left before April 1st, his old contract has that number closer to $200,000. Now, a coach's new school usually pays for the buyout, and coincidentally, UCLA just happened to give Alfred a $200,000 signing bonus. Wonder what that means. All right, now to compare that with other schools, Illinois got $500,000 when Bill Self went to Kansas, and UNLV got the same when its coach jumped to Oklahoma. Elizabeth?
Paul Krebs announced Steve Alford's new deal about 13 days ago and mentioned that UNM might have to raise prices at the pit to help cover his pay hike. But with Neal making almost $500,000 a year less than Alfred would have made, Krebs has said if those price hikes are now off the table. We'll, of course, keep you posted. And, of course, stay with KRQE as we stay on top of the developments surrounding the Lobos. Stay with us for continuing coverage. We will be at the press conference this afternoon as Coach Neal is officially named head coach. The latest information you can always find on our website, krqe.com. In other news this morning, the Albuquerque School Board is looking for your input about some new enrollment requirements designed to cut down on crowded schools. These new requirements would make families provide proof of residency. The district says too many kids are going to schools that are not in their area, and that is causing crowding at some schools.
Virgin Galactic says it is here to stay now that Governor Martinez has signed the so-called spaceport bill. It protects spacecraft companies from most liability lawsuits. Cases ever an accident here. There were fears that Virgin Galactic would pull out of the spaceport down near TRC if this bill failed, but now the company says it is good to go and it should start space flights next year. Construction now underway on a new solar project that could provide 2,500 homes with electricity. The Alamogordo Daily News says more than 100,000 solar panels are going up near highways 54 and 70 just north of Alamogordo. This is the 8th solar site in the state and the second one near Alamogordo. And groundbreaking ceremonies today for 2 new fire stations in Bernalillo County. They'll replace Station 46 on Frost Road in Sandia Park and Station 41 on High 337 in the East Mountains. The ceremony started at 11 this morning at that new station on Frost Road.
He says a Catholic priest sexually abused him back in the 80s. Now that man is suing the Archdiocese of Santa Fe. The suit claims now deceased Father Michael O'Brien gradually groomed then raped the former altar boy at St. Anthony's Church at Cuesta. The plaintiff has had problems and last year actually asked the diocese for help.
As he began to understand what the source and cause of that harm was, he went to those people for help, because he's still an active parishioner.
And what did they do?
They provided him with counseling.
The lawsuit claims the Archdiocese knew back in the 80s it had pedophile priests but failed to protect parishioners. The Archdiocese settled a series of sexual abuse suits for millions of dollars in the 90s. Archbishop Michael Sheehan implemented a zero-tolerance policy for sexual abuse after he took over in 1993.